Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. Will not be joined by Reed this evening. His significant other, his better half, has some issues going on. But look, we need to get into that. I'm possibly joined by Hall and another guest here. But today is a celebration. Washington finishes the regular season 12-5, and the cherry on top, the chef's kiss, is it's over the Dallas Cowboys. And as much as a lot of people were screaming, crying, complaining during that first half, this team, doing the title of this episode, the Comeback Kids, found a way to come back and win this football game. Real quick, just wanted to say the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. And we'll give out game beers here in a few minutes whenever my guest gets in here. But I just wanted to say, this is Terry McLaurin breaking the franchise receiving touchdown record on that last play. I think speaks a lot to this football team. And not only that, look, you could say whatever you want about Dallas and how many guys that they had out and everything, but it wasn't like Washington came out on firing on all cylinders, right? I mean, we had some crucial pieces missing in this game. For one, Tyler Badass. We know how important he is up front, and we saw that early in that football game where Micah is able to get two sacks on Jaden really quickly, which kind of derailed the offense overall. And the crazy thing is Washington today only rushed with the running backs 8 times. And I know Brian Robinson had 5 carries for 10 yards. I think Austin Eckler was 3 for 13. Brian Robinson proved more fruitful in the second half, receiving out of the backfield and his pass blocking. There was one play where Micah loops initially goes in on Wiley rushing, loops back around. B-Rob is able to pick up Micah and move him over for Marcus to be able to throw that ball to Terry. Unfortunately, Terry wasn't able to come down with that one. But speaking of number 17 here, that I'm rocking, my kids are currently out to dinner with my in-laws. They're going out to dinner, and they're rocking both of their Terry McLaurin jerseys. I made sure that was happening. But that guy breaking the franchise record, I think it speaks a lot to Terry and the hardship and what he's gotten through being here. Obviously, a lot of the players and what they went through with this team. But to this point, getting here, being one away from the franchise record, playing late in that game, in the last game of the season, to be able to get that record, I think says a lot about Terry and also this football team. I've said many times, this is the island of misfit toys. And I would imagine Marcus Mariota fits right into that bill of somebody that was cast aside. I know he felt that way. That's why he chose 0. But it's funny because Washington's able to somehow win the football game. And that's what they've been doing all season long, man. None of us should be surprised. I said early on Twitter that because everyone was complaining, obviously you should not be okay with how Washington came out originally in this football game. Okay, they were not firing at all. Everything looked disheveled, very chaotic. Nothing really seemed that their will was being inflicted upon the Cowboys. But the fact of the matter is you got to remember, what have they done all season? This is what they've done all season. Regardless of how the game goes, they still somehow find a way to be in a very close scoring distance to winning the football game when the clock hits 0. And we saw that again today. And I think as a fan base, when we look back at this season, we're going to be in awe and say it's amazing. I mean, for Dan Quinn, one of the only head coaches, I think, in Washington's history of being able to win 12 games in his first year as head coach, I think obviously deserves Coach of the Year just in that feat in itself. Given with everything that has transpired here in Washington, there's other coaches that deserve the award. But look, man, I'm gonna be selfish in this regard and say, DQ deserves it just for what he's done for us here in Washington. He's righted the ship. He's made this thing a well-oiled machine. He's kept the guys focused all throughout the season. When things were getting chaotic, when they had a 3-game skid, things didn't go off the rails, right? Let's go back to that Alex Smith year when he gets injured. They had 6-3 when Alex got injured, and then the season fell apart. That did not happen here this season, where they could have really felt sorry for themselves that everything wasn't going right, and they could have gone back to that aw shucks mentality, but they didn't. Jaden and this football team, led by Dan Quinn, was able to get back on the tracks. They were able to get back on the rails and make sure to win football games and finishing this season with 5 straight. That is exactly how you want to go into the playoffs. What you don't like going into the playoffs here is the running game, where Marcus Mariota was the leading rusher today with 56 yards on 5 carries and 1 touchdown. That 4th and 1 was incredible, which was a bad spot off bat. I think we can all say that right now. When you watch that replay, his arm falls down on the first down marker, and they mark him a yard short. Are you measuring it from his knee? What are we doing here? But fact of the matter is, Marcus was able to rip off a 35-yard run. The funniest image was the TV copy where the safety has his hand up as 4th down because he believes that our running back was tackled with the ball short while Marcus Mariota is running right next to him, running for 30 yards. I thought that was beautiful. It was reminiscent of the Tyreek Stevenson celebration, talking crap to the fan base before the Hail Mary pass, in my personal opinion. This was another example of this team, of the Island of Misfit Toys, banding together. And as much as we all like to give credit to Jaden, and he deserves it wholeheartedly, that kid is captivating. He does things that I honestly did not think was possible. But the fact is, today was an example of showing it's not just Jaden, it's the entire team doing enough to win the football game. That 4th down stand early on in the game by the defense, them keeping the Dallas Cowboy offense to only field goals early on. And then for some reason, the refs wanted to gift the Cowboys a touchdown late in that fourth quarter with that Benjamin St. Jude's DPI. You could say a lot about Benji. He got his holding call. He got that out of the way, right? That was atrocious. Again, his hands up high, hitting the face mask of the wide receiver. Get your hands down, man. You don't. What are you grabbing for? You trying to catch a balloon? Like, what are you doing? Keep your hands low. But that holding call, that was well deserved. The DPI in the end zone, though, that was atrocious. Both guys are hand fighting. We saw that last week or 2 weeks ago with Marshawn Lattimore, right? Where Marshawn and the other, they had their hands on one another, but they still had the ability to catch the football. That guy wholeheartedly did. It wasn't like Benji's holding his arm down. Benji himself went up and hit the ball away. That's just a good football play. That's 2 guys going at it. Should not have been DPI. They gave him that touchdown. Let the refs have it. They wanted to give Jerry theirs. They wanted to get that bonus check, I guess. But the fact is, Washington came away with the dub. They found a way to win, and they did what they needed to. That, I think one of the biggest plays was Dallas letting the clock run out on that 4th and 1, getting the delay of game. That 4th and 1 pickup would have been horrible for this football team. But they got the delay of game, went back to 4th and 6, and punted it, and that's when Marcus Mariota and this offense went down the field. That was a huge play. Washington being able to stop them short. They did what they needed to do today. And as much as we are like to say this team did not come out playoff ready, of course they didn't, because it's not the playoffs. I think naturally as humans we have to admit like naturally what we do. And you had to know going into this game that there was going to be a drop off, like in production means, right? And the reason I say that is you know you're playing in the playoffs. There is no way to escape that. You're going into a game, yes, you're fighting for the 6th seed, but fighting for the 6th seed is very much different than fighting to get into the playoffs, right? And you can look the other examples around the league, look around the NFL. The Packers did not come out firing on all cylinders today. We can admit that. Look at the Buccaneers. Neither did they, but they were able to come out with wins. And I'm sure that their fans are complaining themselves, but my point being here is good teams just find a way to win. And that's what they did today. And as much as we don't like to talk about there being a plethora of talent on this roster, I'll talk about the drops today. Obviously, those were evident. But I think that was a lot due to just not being on the same page. I think the sacks early on by Micah really kind of sped things up. Whenever you have the lack of confidence in your O-line, especially as a quarterback, your clock is going to be accelerated. Your confidence is not going to be as high. And so you try to make more things happen. You try to do things quicker. And so because that, That's when you have those miscues, guys not being on the same page because maybe you're doing something a little bit too quick that you shouldn't be doing. Just taking that deep breath, being able to put that where it needs to be. But a lot of those balls were high today. Some of them were just out of the stretch, just a little bit. You saw Terry McLaurin on his first drop, literally diving both hands and barely goes through his hands. That's obviously, like people say, if the ball touches your hands, you should catch it. But that's one of those where you say, can you really blame the guy for dropping that one? I mean, he is in full-fledged dive for that football, right? But that speaks to who Terry McLaurin is, always going all out for something. He had some crucial catches in that last drive, the 3rd and 4, where he's able to hold on to that football. A lot of people were talking a lot on Twitter, and they don't like to admit it, but it's okay. That's fine. I don't need you to admit it. I just need you to stop doing it so much because that dude has done so much for this franchise. And again, today, getting us that W and getting that 6 seed, you can thank the Island of Misfit Toys for being able to pull this one out. Look, in Dallas's offensive line, I know a lot of people are going to crap on Duran and John. Duran had that horrible on that screenplay, the tight end bobbles it, and for some reason Duran lets him go. And then Jeremy Chin comes up and lays the wood, of course. But my goodness, man, like Duran, you got to stay on that, man. Like I know we got negative yards on that play, but you got to do something more. Maybe pop that thing up in the air or something. You know what I'm saying? So, but the Cowboys' offensive line is not bad. Brock Hoffman, who went to Virginia Tech, was actually an offensive lineman coming out in this draft. I really wanted us to take a look at and possibly bring in for depth reasons. And you saw today that he is a very productive interior offensive lineman for the Cowboys. They got Tyler Smith back this week, of course. Cooper Beebe was somebody I really liked coming out of this draft class. I was pissed that the Cowboys got him. And I said in the preseason, I was like, they might not be starting him at center right now, but he's going to be. And that's how much confidence I had in the kid. And you saw today how much of a force he can be. You can, especially with Cooper being there at center, you can see the compare and contrast as to the running game and how crucial it is to have a good center and getting that interior push of moving bodies around. If you have somebody that you feel very comfortable with being able to move and get into those creases, you're able to run the ball very well, which we saw today. Washington held Devontae Turpin at 22 carries for 72 yards, about 3 yards per carry. Wasn't crazy, right? But they had a plethora of other guys come in. Deuce Vaughn, I think, is a very, very elusive, quick guy that is very similar to guys like Chris Thompson back in the day where they would get lost behind that offensive lineman. It's hard to keep track of them. But Washington did what they needed to do. They held the Cowboy offense to 7 of 17 on 3rd down. Washington themselves was 6 of 13. I think a lot of those happened in the first half, and guys just not being on the same page, the sacks, the penalties really were something bad in the backside. But the run game is something that really needs to get going, man. But I don't need to crap on them anymore. Coming into this game, I thought that we needed to establish a run. I thought it was something that we needed to really be able to go into the playoffs saying that, oh, we got this going again. We feel good about it. You don't come out of this game thinking that we got the run game going. It was the absolute opposite, where we are really, truly struggling at being able to move bodies around and creating space for our running backs in order for them to gain extra yards. And, like, I love Maul, because Maul said on Twitter, he was like, you guys are yelling about B-Rob, but, like, all of our running backs are getting hit in the backfield when they're getting the ball. And he's 100% right. That's what I've been seeing for a long time now. And early on in the season, that wasn't the case, right? We were able to move guys around, and obviously you're going to be banged up at some points in the season, and it's hard to demand that all year. But in the playoffs, that's something that is very crucial, that is needed. And looking forward, that's something that Washington has to be able to do well in order to go. I said it last week. I think Washington goes as far as their run game does, and this is going to be a big test next week in the playoffs. But can we all take a deep breath and just look at this for what it is? Washington is 12-5. Think about that. Last year, what was our record last year? 3-14. 12-5, my friends. Embrace it. Look back at this season, and just go the Hail Mary, the Cincinnati win, the Eagles win, the Tennessee win, dominating fashion, the Browns win, the Cardinals win on dominating in that regard. Like, you got to look at this team and say, just, wow, what they have done together. And you can't put it all on Jaden. Obviously, Jaden has a huge part in it. But them as a group, they have done some amazing things, man. And they should all be very proud of themselves. Every person in that building, in that organization, deserves a slap on the back, deserves a high five, a dap up. They deserve something for what they did today. Now I want to get some fan questions in here before I'm joined by my guest here. This first one was submitted on Twitter by my boy Tony Franchise. Thank you, Tony. His question is, how good does it feel? It's January. We beat Dallas to end the season, and we're going to the playoffs. On top of that, we won 12 games this year. I'll never forget in 2012, going into that week of the playoffs, being like, "Wow, we get to see another game." Like it's just crazy, right? It's crazy to think about. Coming into this year, my biggest want and was for the team to be an overall team, to have a nucleus, to have that bond, that relationship, and we have really seen that blossom this year in a quick fashion too, which is kind of crazy to think about with how many moving parts that they had coming into this year. But it was a crucial piece to how they got here. And I think it speaks a lot to who Jaden Daniels is as a leader because it is hard as a young man. Obviously, you're drafted high, you're getting paid lots of money, you have high expectations of yourself and people around you. But to be a leader of men is very difficult because it's not something that can just be talked about. And that's something that I think quarterbacks in the past here struggled with. It has to be earned through action, it has to be earned through confidence. It has to be earned through competency. And that's what Jaden Daniels earned, I think, early on in this season. I think the week 3 win with Cincinnati was big. I think the week 2 win against New York was even bigger. I think that really kind of sped things up, got that confidence brewing. But I've only been around I said this on Twitter last week. There's only one person I've been around who has Jaden Daniels' personality, where it's not the introvert, but it's the strength and confidence in just being you. And there's only one other person I've played with, and they played quarterback for us for flag, and he's one of the best athletes I've ever played with. But I can see how guys can relate to it and not only look up to it, but respect it. And that's what Jaden Daniels earned this year. And it speaks a lot to this football team. And because the older guy, like that's what I was saying early on with this team, is they're very different in the sense of the guys who have been here, who are brought over from the previous regime, they are hungry to win. So it's not like they're looking down their noses. It's not like they're sitting on an ivory tower at the newcomers because their whole mindset is, oh, this is a fresh change of pace. This is a fresh new guys in here. Let's do whatever we need. We have to also prove ourselves to this new staff to build confidence with them so they can rely on us as well. But then you had the new guys come in, get gelled in, and almost realize themselves that they have to, on 1-year deals, that they have to work hard. They have to earn the respect of their teammates that have been here before. So it's a very accepting kind of aspect to the team, almost like a family in that sense, but all very motivated to win, to prove themselves, to be productive. And then the head of that is the young king, young lion in Jaden Daniels, who is willing to just go but with confidence and ease and competency and be able to win games for this team. And I think that they are very unique in that aspect. It's very hard to be able to get that at this level with kind of the egos that you have, if you will. But I'm happy. Look, as much as this team has been a drag for many years, going back 20, 30 years, I'm only 34. But just saying it was all worth it for this. And as much as that is probably low standards, given the fact, but we're 12-5. We got the rookie quarterback that everyone wanted, right? And we're in a position where we have a playoff game this week, and it's awesome to see, Jeff. Now I'm joined by my next guest, Mr. Hefe Miles. Thank you for joining me, Jeff. How you doing, man? Can you hear me?
There we go. I can hear you now.
What's up, Jeff? Hey, before we get started, I know you had just started your own show, your own podcast, with some NFC East rivals. So I was able to catch a little bit of it the other night. Kind of talk about it a little bit and just give yourself a little plug for anybody watching so they can come follow you.
Yeah, for sure. It's called NFC East Beef. I have a bunch of friends who are NFC East um, fans, Cowboy fans, Eagles fans, Giants fans. So we decided we're just friends. We talk football all the time, so we decided to put something together just so we can talk. I love watching, the super friends of the NFC East. I just have a place to talk about football and argue, debate, and I thought about this honestly. Uh, this off season, I thought about it, but I just had so much going on that I haven't really had time to do it. But over the Christmas break, had some time to start it, and yeah, let's get into some NFC East arguments. I love it.
My man. So make sure you guys go and check that out and subscribe to my boy. You can probably search on YouTube. I'm not sure. Are you doing the audio platforms as well?
Not yet, not yet. We just started, so we're just on YouTube right now. I'm thinking about adding on to Spotify. I'm a Spotify listener, for right now, we're just keeping it to YouTube.
My man. Before we get into fan questions and everything to wrap up this kind of recap, we like to give out game beers. Of course, you know this. So, who is somebody that you think deserves a game beer?
Um, he had some mess ups, but at the end of the day, he finished it out for us. So I'm gonna go Mariota. You definitely get a game beer. That 35 yard run. Look, we're around the same age. I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? So for him to get out there and do that with the game on the line on a 4th and 1, I give him a game beer. Are we just going one or just
Yeah, just do
going
one
one?
each. We'll do one each. But it's funny because the Mariota ghost sack that he had, that was so relatable for many of us sitting at this age that we are. I'm 34.
Yeah.
I know what that feels like, my friend. I've been at work before. But somebody I think that deserves a game beer is Jeremy Chin. He led the team in tackles today with 13, had a sack that was huge, was able to bull rush the offensive lineman, get around him, and then being able to sack Trey Lance there, but also had one tackle for loss as well on the day. He is another guy that continues to be a force. I talked earlier about the Deron Payne letting up on the tight end when he still caught the ball on the screen, and then Jeremy Chin just flies up and pops him. It's just one of those guys that is there when you need him to be, right? Who is somebody else you want to give a game beer to?
Um, I want to give a game beer to Terry. You got to. I mean, these are obvious ones. I'm trying to think of someone else that you're not really thinking of. But I did want to. I'm going to cheat a little. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say Terry and Jaden are in the VIP lounge. They already have.
Exactly.
They got the bottles. They got the sparklers, right? Like they're
Okay.
already. We all know about those
Got you.
two.
Got you. All right. So obviously that, but we were panicking about a month ago over this guy. I'm going to go Zane Gonzalez.
Okay.
You know, um, making extra points, making field goals. These are things that we take for granted, but when we didn't have them, the house was on fire.
Right.
So I don't know where we'd be if we missed some field goals, missed some extra points. Who knows where we'd be? Even last week, he just came in, did his job. So I'm gonna give it to Zane, and I'll let you go.
My man, that's actually a really good one because he does deserve credit. He was getting a bunch of crap for, flicking his hair back before that one field goal attempt that he missed. But look, man, he did what he needed to do. He did his job today. And that's all you can ask in these crucial situations, which is what Terry McLaurin did, of course, who had 8 receptions for 62 yards, 1 touchdown on 12 targets. Everyone's gonna talk about the drops, but that's like the Super Troopers thing where
Yeah,
they're at the shooting range. And he's like, what about that little guy? He's like, this little guy? I wouldn't worry about this little guy.
yeah,
That's what I was saying about Terry. A lot of people are losing their heads about him. Just let the man go to work. He's going to continue to show you that he's elite. That catch, going up high, ripping it away from the DB, and then getting his knee and leg down was just absolutely amazing. But somebody else that gets a game beer for today is Mikey Samerstill, Agent Zero. Had second on the team in tackles with 10, had 3 pass deflections. He plays the ball so freaking well, man. And he plays it to the point where the refs can't throw a flag because he plays it so well. The one on the sideline where he runs up and he doesn't swat that ball out of his hands until that ball is touching that wide receiver's hands, right? So it's not like they could throw a flag on that one. In the end zone, again, another one of those situations where he's playing the ball very well. The first incompletion, I was down the sideline. That was going to be a huge play. Trey Lance runs to his right, throws it deep down the sideline. Mikey, who's in trail, is in the middle of the field playing zone, sees that wide receiver, turns around, and then runs to the sideline and able to obstruct him enough to get out of bounds to where it wouldn't be a catch. That kid is continuing to show he is a force, and he is somebody that has earned his job. and continues to come out. And I know a lot of people said today he came to play. He wanted the 6th seed. I think a lot of people on this team wanted the 6th seed, but it's just a matter of good matchups, you could say. But Mikey performed well. He deserves a game beer. Is there anyone else that you would give it to?
Let's see. I do want to second that and agree with you. Just imagine if we had, if we have help on the other side. If St. Juice isn't getting flack for everything. I know he had a rough game. We can go over that later. But I want to give one. Finally Jonathan Allen did something. And you know what I'm gonna do the D line, and here's why. I know they gave up. A lot of rushing yards to Dowdle in a touchdown. But you know what? They went down to that the red zone to the 3 or 4 yard line like 3 times, and they stopped them. So I'm gonna say they get one rushing touchdown out of that. It's not great, but you know what? They held their own. So I'm gonna give it to the D line.
Absolutely. And that rushing touchdown was off of that. I talked about it already, but that stupid penalty on Benjamin St. Just. And we're not going to complain about penalties or anything, but they did give them that touchdown. And you can't really put that on the defense, in my personal opinion. They were bend but don't break today. And that's what their MO was. They had that 4th and goal stand early on, and they held them to only field goals until that penalty, right? And so I think that's a great one by you, because Jonathan Allen getting his sack today was absolutely huge. He passed Ken Harvey in sacks, career franchise sacks, so he gets a lot of credit, of course. The other one I'll say is Alamati Zacchaeus. He's the last one we'll highlight. 2 receptions, 51 yards on 5 targets. Didn't help early on. I think the team overall was just not on the same page. I think those sacks early on really hampered the cohesion of everybody early on. You could see it just how everyone was playing. But Alamati, when Marcus Mariota came in and Mariota needed some help, Alamati came up. OZ came up with it, man. That huge catch down the sideline, then being able to extend the change later on. He's somebody that deserves a game beer. Credit to OZ. I won't call him Oz like Cliff Kingsbury. I've learned my lesson there. So OZ deserves a game beer wholeheartedly. Great job today, boy. You did exactly what you needed to.
I was going to agree with you. The reason I didn't say that was that one drop, that touchdown. If it was contested, I would say, what, that happens. But that was in the basket. That was right. That was a dime by Diami Brown. But you know what? He came back.
What a throw by Diami, by the way. I didn't know he was left-handed.
He had an arm. I didn't know that. He threw it like 30 yards.
And that was a bullet on the move, too. He was moving through it like a bullet, and it was right on. Like, my whole thing was, when watching it, it almost seemed like OZ, his footing was messed up. Like, he was debating and being able to turn around for the ball, which I thought he should have done. Like, you've seen in baseball with center fielders, if they're tracking a ball behind them, if they get above the ball, they'll turn their body and then face the ball and then catch it going backwards. I thought that's what, like, OZ should have done there. And it seemed like he was debating that. Like, if you watch his feet, it seems very choppy, like he's trying to decide, which threw everything off for him. Somebody else pointed out on Twitter that because Diami's left-handed, that ball trailed a different way. And so OZ kind of like lost it in that regard. And I've heard that before. It's a really good point. I was noted. I just think that maybe his footwork messed him up, because you've played ball. You know that if your footing is not 100%, you get that uncomfortable way about you when you're trying to track something, you can lose it. Right, and that's how I kind of viewed that OZ one, but he made up for it later on. I will say, as much as we needed that touchdown, he made up for it, man.
Yeah, I give it to him. It's how you finish the game, right?
It's not how you start; it's how you finish. That's why I said in the Discord, Tony. Jeff. My gosh, you're on my. You get me. Now
Tony Jeff.
I know. My name, Jeff. Now let's go to our fan questions that were submitted. This one is by Deluxe. How important is badass to the offense?
I think each one of those members on the offensive line is really important. Now, we saw last week where Allegretti started calling blitzes and all of that stuff. So I think each member is important. You definitely notice a difference when badass is in there. He's very important, but I will say this: he's just as important as Sam Cosmi if Cosmi were to go out, or Allegretti, or Coleman went down today. If any one of those lineman goes out, it is noticeable. It just so happens that the center is sort of the leader of the offensive line who calls the blitzes. He snaps the ball. He has that relationship, that timing with Jaden Daniels. Knowing when he's going to hike the ball, all of that. So you definitely notice it, but you'll notice it for any starter that's going to be out.
Yeah, it's a great point by you. We before the season, before the draft even started, I made the point of saying if you're going to have a rookie quarterback, you'd rather have a rookie left tackle than you would a rookie center. And the reason for that is for what you talked about, Allegretti making the calls, right? For that specific reason. So you have a center who knows exactly what to do, is able to point things out, get everybody else in line, and so everyone is on the same page. So I think that losing Badass was huge, of course. I think Dieter did not start out well today, but he held his own once the game started to get going, right? Obviously, Coleman was able to come in. Trent Scott did a great job in response to that. They continued to move the ball down the field. He wasn't a liability, so to speak, when Mariota was in there. When Coleman went out, obviously, he came back in. But Trent Scott did not look all that great last week at right tackle. This week at left tackle, he looked like a different guy. He actually did pretty well. But credit and hat tip to Brandon Coleman for coming back in that game. But Badass is huge in the sense of that confidence being built. But I think that this game was great for Dieter in the sense of gaining the confidence that, yeah, you messed up early on. But as the game went on, he kind of got his feet underneath of him, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so that confidence is really good in case something, again, happens in the playoffs and Dieter has to step in there. It's a really good
Yeah.
question by Deluxe.
I wanted to give. I just thought of one, not to backtrack. When you talked about left tackles, there is one more game beer that I think is very crucial, and he didn't score a touchdown. He didn't do what he normally does. But hey, Brian Robinson, you come here and you get that chip on Michael Parsons for this whole second half of the game. We didn't really hear Michael Parsons' name for the whole rest of half of the game because they brought that help over him and Eckler chipping over Michael Parsons. So not no did he get 100 yards rushing? No, but you know what? He stopped animal. So I'm going to give him that for that. And then,
You're absolutely right. On Wednesday, I had said that Brian Robinson looked like he took a step back this year in pass blocking, but he really showed himself today by showing up. And because last week, what's his face, Ellis was able to sack Jaden Daniels on a rush on B Rob. He got blown back on. Look, you're allowed to have one miscue, and B Rob made up for it today. So credit to you for pointing that out because that's a fantastic one. B Rob did do a very good job. Now the next question is from Tim Towner, Jeff. AP and DQ have retooled this team in 1 year. Who is the unsung free agent signing for 2024, and who was a waste of cash?
who unsung free agent signing? Um, hmm. It's crazy because all of the free agent signings have made a difference. I want to say a sleeper, and we haven't seen him in a couple weeks. But Noah Brown was huge.
Yep.
Um, Noah Brown was a sleeper that nobody saw coming. He hasn't been out here for a while, but you know what? He showed out, and I'm going to give Noah Brown that nod.
My man, I love that one. What's up, Hall? Good to see you, brother.
Yo, 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 what is going on, fellas? How's it going? Hefe, how's it going?
Is it cold back over there? What's going on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely cold. I mean, it's not as cold as I was thought it was gonna be, but it's definitely cold, which
That means
means I
he's,
think it's
that means he's been drinking. That's what that means.
a little bit.
Hey, he can't confirm nor deny.
Tim
There
Towner
we go.
asked this question, Hall. AP and DQ have retooled this team in 1 year. Who is the unsung free agent signing from 2024, and who was a waste of cash?
Unsung.
Hefe picked Noah Brown.
Okay. I would say, hmm. Yeah, Noah Brown's a good one. I'd probably go with. I have to just maybe say Austin Eckler. I know obviously as of late he's been injured. He missed the last couple games, but first half of the season he was a difference maker for us. He was a playmaker for the offense. He made up however much percent of the yards for the offense. So receiver out the backfield, rushing the ball, just the presence of being on the offense on the field, just making the defense have to sleep or make the defense have to think about what's he going to do with the ball, can he get the ball, blah blah blah, stuff like that. So I would say Austin Eckler just because, like I said, I think the first half of the season and then hopefully in the playoffs, he'll be that piece that we need on offense.
There's so many, Tim, that you could pick that could be considered unsung heroes. The political answer here is Marcus Mariota for what he added to the quarterback room. It wasn't too long ago that he had left the Falcons because they benched him, right? Well, because he couldn't be the starter anymore. They wanted to go to the young guy, Desmond Ritter. Well, he comes here and absolutely just conforms to the idea of helping Jaden Daniels in that locker room. You saw what he did with Jaden last week against the Falcons on that last play, coming up telling him, hey, man, get up, catch your breath. Everything's good. Go use your God-given abilities to go win us this football game. And that's what Jaden Daniels needed to hear. That aspect huge. And then bring into the aspect of what he did early on in the season against Cleveland, right, against these other teams where he was able to come in and win us football games like today. He 100% political answer, he deserves it. The other answer, the legit answer, I would say, is probably Noah Igbinogi. And the reason being is his presence in the slot has been such a positive this year that they have felt comfortable with leaving Mikey out on the outside, right? Having Noah there gave them the ability to be okay with having Mikey on the outside, which allowed Mikey to blossom. He has been very good statistically, being able to strap up slots. It's not the easiest job in the world to play slot. You have to go against some of the quickest, best athletes out on the field, and you have to be able to not only play zone, come up, make tackles close to the line of scrimmage, but you got to be able to run toe-to-toe with them and knock some balls out. And Noah, I think, is somebody you could say is an easy unsung hero for this team. I think he fits the definition of that. Great question, Tim. That was phenomenal. Now, the next question that we have in the Discord, this one is from Tim Towner. Hefe, number 1 seed on the line tonight between Minnesota and Detroit. Who are you taking?
I gotta go with Detroit. They got some sort of aura about them. It's scary, you know. It's I mean, obviously when you're on the Vikings, you're not afraid of that. You're going in there, you're surprised yourself, you know. But I asked myself that exact question: who was surprised to be here, and who thought the whole time that they were going to be there? And to me, it's the Lions. The Lions knew from the get-go that, you know, what's his name? The guy that was supposed to be our coach,
Benny.
but not supposed to be Ben Johnson. The reason he wanted to stay was because he saw something, right? You got that number 1 seed on the line. They're supposed to go out there and get it. And not to mention, they're depleted on their defense, and they're still beating teams by double digits easy. Now, the Vikings are, don't get me wrong, Vikings are playing, you know, lights out as well. But I don't think anybody expected Sam Darnold to have, you know, all this in his bag. So I'm still not believing in the whole Vikings going to the Super. I'm not believing that yet, but I do think this Lions team, injured and all, can still go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Vikings themselves, they tragically lost their corner, Kyrie Jackson, early in the offseason, right after the draft, and that was horrible in itself. They've had some bad injuries to their secondary, but they have really been the Cinderella story, besides Washington, of course. But just being with Sam Darnold, the comeback story, Kevin O'Connell is Hall's boy. He loves this dude, and he deserves a lot of credit. And it's really hard for Dan Quinn to win Coach of the Year with somebody like Kevin O'Connell there doing what he's done with that football team. I think that this goes a long way with like Vegas and how the playoffs are going to go. I think the Vikings do win this game, just building up to that matchup that's possibly going to be rearing its ugly head in the playoffs. So I'll go with the Vikings just because I want that heated up a little bit. The Lions have been running over people. I want to see someone get knocked in the mouth. They are giving that Philadelphia Eagle vibe from a couple years ago where they seem, in the Bills, where they seem that nobody can unbeatable, but then fall short at some point. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be hopefully a great matchup. I think it's going to be one of the best matchups of the year, like a high-scoring type of game. Come down to like the fourth quarter, last drive, something like that. This is maybe, like you said, that's my guy. I love Kevin O'Connell. I wish he would have stayed around when he was here in Washington. I was really high on him, and obviously he's blossomed to be like a great fucking head coach. Excuse my language. But, yeah, I would say that like I said, maybe this is my favoritism, my homerism for Kevin Connell showing. I just think that it's going to come down to, can Sam Darnold keep rising to the occasion in the big lights like he has been all season, and continue his kind of his Geno Smith type of rebirth of an NFL career type
Right.
going. So yeah, I think Vikings will pull it out. I think they get I guess would it be the number one overall seed, and yeah, I think that shakes up the playoffs, makes everything a lot more interesting in the NFC, and let's get off to it. Let's get to it.
Yep, Washington solidified the 6th seed today, so they would go against the 3 seed, whoever that would be, possibly the Rams or the Bucks, who also won today. Now, the next question we have, Hall. This is from Andy Lockhart, Mr. Irrelevant, the
Oi.
1 Point Safety Show. Oi! In the UK. Why is our O line so bad? Can't create run gaps, penalties, and poor in pass protection. What is going on?
Um, couldn't tell you. They were really good in the first half of the season. Injuries started piling up, and you thought, okay, maybe like once they get a little bit more healthy down the stretch, everything will synchronize back up and they'll get back to it. And outside of that Tennessee game, and Jaden Daniels pretty much taking over and doing what he does in the scrambling game and the quarterback run game, there hasn't really been a lot of holes. There hasn't been a lot of creases. And I know Biotis has been in and out, and that's a big part of it because Dieter is Trent Scottish, to say the least, if that makes sense. And yeah, so I don't really. Yeah, I could just say I don't know. I guess the first half of the season, the scheme, the run game, the misdirection, all that was helping out the offensive line. Maybe defenses have caught up to the run game, caught up to what's going on. I mean, you saw against the Eagles, Jalen Carter pretty much pointed out what Sam Cosmi was going
Right.
to do on that run play. So that means they're watching a lot of film on this, and teams are, I guess, catching up. Cliff has been making adjustments here and there, but it's been more of the adjustments with Jaden Daniels in the running game as far as like him getting him involved, not really adjustments with getting the running backs and those type of lanes involved. Him and Anthony Lynn really got to sit down and really get this corrected because obviously everyone knows playoff football comes down to defense, running the ball, time of possession, and if you have a home crowd advantage, that definitely helps too. But yeah, I don't really know the exact thing. I would just say maybe defenses have caught up a little bit faster than we have liked or that we thought to Cliff's run schemes.
Yeah, I will say that first off, Minka, had 9.5 sacks coming into this game. Obviously, he leaves, I think, 11, possibly. I think 11 and a half, if I'm not mistaken. And so he didn't play in every game. He was out for quite a bit. This is what the Cowboys defensive line does. They do that to you. And that's the one thing is in the trenches, they were very stacked, but it was like their perimeter players is where their injuries were. And so that's one reason, like, you can look at the Cowboys, say they're injury depleted, but not in the trenches. In the trenches, they were very much there. Our offensive line it's not so much of ground and pound, punch you in the mouth. It's much more of moving guys and being able to get on the perimeter, using kind of the misdirection to kind of mess with people. Early on in the season, it was a lot of the fake run, right, and then being able to dish the ball out wide or to fake outside and give it up the middle. And so that sort of stuff went dry because you put it out on film so much. And so I think that teams are getting hip to it, like Hall had just expertly talked about. And so it's harder to be able to just to get back to the ground and pound when that hasn't been your MO all season. So I will say that why are they so bad? I don't think they're that bad. I think that as a team, they are just struggling with an identity on the offensive line. Is exactly how we're going to implement our will, and a lot of it hangs on what Jaden does with his legs. And we saw today with Mariota being able to run outside the pocket, create some running lanes for this football team. It's just it's an overall team aspect, and obviously it's something they got to work on, and they need more depth. I would say, no disrespect to the guys we have on the team right now, but you want to have more confidence going in, and obviously you need more playing time to be able to gain more confidence. But just saying, we need some big men up front. What about you, Jeff?
Um, this is interesting because it's two factors: the run offensive line plays and the pass protection. I didn't notice a slight change when they stopped rotating Brandon Coleman and Cornelius Lucas out so often. They still, get a couple plays in and here and there, but I noticed that at the beginning of the year, Jaden Daniels had all the time in the world to throw. You know, is that because some athletes are getting tired, they're getting refreshed, and then they go back in? Don't know. I think it also has something to do with the fact that we don't have the same wide receivers blocking on the outside, right? We don't have Noah Brown blocking those stretch plays on the outside. So they're not as much of a threat. I think there's a lot of factors into it. It's just with the culmination of that and what y'all said about, people, seeing the schemes, they know what's happening. Jalen Carter knew the play before it even happened. They watched film. And just like Jaden Daniels can watch film in VR, other teams can do that too. So they see that they know, oh, I don't got to worry about a 6'2" Noah Brown coming in out of nowhere and blocking me off the edge. Cool. So yeah, and not to mention we didn't have Eckler. We're still trying to figure out how the run game is starting. So what's going to happen. It's just a lot easier to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, agree with you
I
there.
would say one more I want to add. I would say that like you'll see Cliff has been trying to pass like a lot on like early downs, like a lot of first and second downs. I think he realizes like, all right, the run game's not really
Yes.
getting generated. Let me get the pass game going early, get them in second and shorts, third and manageables, whatever it may be. And that's going to loosen up the defense eventually. At some point, they're going to have to respect the early down pass, opens up the lanes a little bit more, hopefully for B-Rob. So I think it really just comes down to obviously the run game needs to get going. They need to be better, but that first and second down execution on the passing downs, if they're gonna pass the ball early like that, needs to definitely be like executed better, and that way it'll be able to set up the run game better for the running backs.
That being said, even when they had those short yardage third downs, they still aren't running the
Oh, and they're
football.
not getting any push. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if guys are tired, banged up, or what, but
And
yeah, it's a combination of all those things.
not to mention, ever since that Panthers game, Jaden's not running early. Jaden's not running the ball until second quarter at least. So they're not really afraid of that. So if you can't set up the run game early in the game, they're not really worried about that.
My man.
Right.
Next question we have, Jeff. This is from Yam Sensei. How will the staff best prepare the team not to have slow starts in the playoffs? We can't afford that. It's legit next level football.
I think Dan Quinn is the absolute right guy to do it because at this point, there's no quit. This is the time to bring that dog out. And for some reason, all you hear, the interviews and players talk about Dan Quinn. He knows how the way to get to the guy, right? He knows how to get to your heart and pump you up. At this point, there's no rest. We gotta put our team on our back and we gotta go and punch whoever we got in the mouth. That he got to fire him up. Wagner, we got to look at our vets. Wagner got to pump up that defense. Luvu, Mariota, like you said earlier, getting Jaden in the right mind space. I don't know if Mariota's been in this situation before. I can't really remember, but getting the vets to get everybody else ready and pumped up. I think that's where we need to be.
It's not really something that you can dive in on and say, like everyone wants to say you start fast and you blow them out. Like it's easy to come out and just like say that, right? It's much more so of like the why. And I think that Dallas had a good game plan coming into this. McCarthy knows Joe Witt very well. He was with him in Green Bay. They talked about this on TV. And so obviously this has been a thing with Washington for a little while. Whereas like they were getting up early in the season, they would get up early in the first half and then hold on to the lead in the second half, right? And now at the end of the year, it's kind of flip-flopped where Washington is much more so of being able to come back late in these games and win. And so I think with Washington, it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. And they find like you would like them to make that adjustment sooner and be able to come out with some recipes to make some things happen. But this is the NFL. Everyone gets paid, right? And it's hard to find the reason for it. But all you can do is have great film preparation. You have each guy being able to say, this is who you're going to be matched up on this week. Find some cues. Find something like Jalen Carter with Sam Cosmi picking out that he was going to pull. That's from watching the body language of Sam Cosmi and noticing that his left shoulder is rising up a little bit. He's more turned to the inside on his stance, knowing that he's looking to turn and pull there. That's one of those things, like that's something that Kobe would do, right? Just finding something about you to give you another level up, so to speak. That's the only thing that you can really do to say, harness your craft, come into this game. We've been playing with house money all year. The game are on the line, but look, we're in the playoffs. We're on a big stage. And if you really want to show people that anything is possible, this is the game to do it. And we got to go in, have a fun time, but go in with the right preparation. Have fun during the game, but all week put your heart and soul into prepping for this. Don't put it up. Don't put the P on a pedestal, right? Like we have seen from 40-year-old virgin. But in the same breath, just take it seriously. Put the preparation in and go in knowing that this is just a game that you love to play, and you guys have won 12 games this year. And I think that's probably going to be enough to do it. What about you all?
Yeah, I think obviously it comes down to like the coaches getting the guys mentally prepared, physically prepared, and like Dan Quinn motivating them and getting them mentally ready and whatnot, prepared and whatnot. But I just feel like majority of it comes down to the players. Like this is the
Yeah.
playoffs. This is what you play for. This is what you play to get in. You play as a team, obviously, to win your division. Once that's how to reach, okay, we can get into the playoffs. Now we're playing to get into the tournament. You've reached your 1A goal has been reached. So now it's up to the players. Not saying like coaching doesn't matter because obviously coaching matters, but it's up to the players to get themselves to that level of this is playoff football. I got to bring that type of intensity that's on another level of regular season football. Like you said, we've won 12 games. We know how to win games. I got to get myself in that mindset, and I just got to lock in. And at the end of the day, yes, it comes down to the a lot of people say it comes down to it's the Jims and Joes or the X's and O's. And I feel like, yes, at this point, when you get to the playoffs, you're facing nothing but good teams. And yes, a lot of the rosters in the NFC and in the playoffs that we're going to face are better rosters than us. And it's going to come down to we have a couple Jims and Joes, but it's really going to come down to the X's and O's and the execution and really being mentally locked in, not committing dumb penalties, not being again, like I said, not locked in crucial situations, those winning times that Dan Quinn talks about, those winning moments. So yeah, I just think it's on a majority of it's on the players. It's definitely on the coaches to get them locked in, put them in the position to get there. But if you're not mentally locked in, ready to go for playoff football, then as a player, that's on you.
Yes. Now the next question we have two more that I want to get to, but this second to last one from Deluxe. Hall winners want the ball with the game on the line. Do you think Terry asked for the ball again at the end?
I would hope so. I hope that I mean, look, he's your best player on the offense outside of Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels not in the game. Your best player on that offense right in that moment is Terry McLaurin. I would say that the way that they lined up, the way that they put the trips to I think it was trips to the right side, Terry on the left by himself. They put him out there by himself, so they were like, hey, it's go time. It's winning time. It's those winning moments. So I don't know if he went up to Cliff and said like in the Cincinnati game, hey, I see this, I see that, give me the ball, or what happened. But I just know that that's a hell of a time to break a record. Congrats to Terry on that. He definitely deserves it. And yeah, shout out to Marcus Mariota. That was a great ball, great placement on the ball, great pass.
Perfect placement.
But again, I think shout out to Cliff because I think he said, "Who's my best guy on the offense? Let me just put him in the best situation to win," which he did.
Look, of course you want Terry to want the ball, and of course you would want to give the ball to Terry in that regard. But there's one thing you did miss about that play. Washington comes out and they have two wide on each side. Terry up top. I think it was OZ in the slot next to him. They show up and man, the Cowboys call a timeout because typically you want to be able to see what the offense comes out with in order for you to come up with a better play, right? Well, the Cowboys come back out with man. So Cliff, expertly thinking, okay, well, if you're going to go man in this situation, I'm going to move that slot guy on Terry's side.
That's what it
make
was.
it
Okay, yeah.
make it three wide on this side so Terry's isolated. And my wife was watching the game with me, and I was sitting there saying, Terry all day. Terry,
Yep.
quick pass
As
all
soon as,
day long.
as soon as he got the single, I was like, I was going to Terry.
Yep, it's going to Terry. And so as much as you would want Terry to say, I want the ball, and Cliff to say, it's going to Terry, they could have easily doubled him there. And then it changes everything because then you're kind of going against two guys at that point. You want to move things around. But so it was a fascinating kind of couple of events to happen there that was so crucial. It just shows how it's a game of inches in the NFL. Now, the next question that we have, this one was submitted by Tim Towner, and he did it just to be able to like spark up conversation, but I think it's an important one. Jeff, his question is JD not playing because why? And who is the genius who said go for 2 after the Ertz touchdown?
Yeah, the I'll start with the two. I don't know about that one. I think if we were up by 4, going. I guess you hit the 2 point conversion, they have to get that extra point. So I guess that's there. But for JD, I'm not sure if they were paying attention at halftime. Maybe they saw that Jordan Love was injured going out. Maybe they saw that the Packers were losing the game, and obviously you still play your game to win the game. I'm well aware of that. But maybe they're like, oh, we don't want that to be Jaden. Maybe they just like, you know what, Packers gonna lose, or they're on their way to losing. They injured their quarterback. We don't want to be like them. They pull them. Um, you know what? I've told myself I'm gonna trust this, front office. I'm gonna trust the coaches, and so far it's paid off. So if they think that's best right now, they think that's best. And Jaden's broken all the records, right? We haven't been 12-5 since before I was born. So it's about trusting them, and I'm gonna ride with that.
Yes, for the Ertz touchdown where they went for 2. If you guys can remember, do you know what that 2-point conversion was what play they went to? Do you remember what it was? It was a high go ball to Terry McLaurin in the end zone.
I was gonna. Yeah, it was
So,
a little bit off.
My point being is, I think that they viewed that as a 2-point play in practice. They practiced it. They liked the matchup that they had. Unfortunately, Mariota puts that ball too high. And thank goodness that they did, because now when Mariota goes to that play for the touchdown, that ball is still high, but it's in perfect placement because that first ball, he put it too high. And so thank goodness that happened. As much as we want to poo-poo that call, it was very necessary for Washington to win the football game altogether. I myself did not understand why they went for 2, because that field goal, it didn't matter regardless of what you did there. But I understand now why they did it, because maybe they just felt really good about that play to Terry. And that I understand wholeheartedly. Now, why did Jaden not play? I think because what you saw with what happened with Brandon Coleman, with what you saw happen with Frankie Louvu, they were not willing for this game, just for the 6th seed, to be able to hamper this young man, possibly not for just this season, but hamper his progress for the next couple seasons. You can kind of mortgage that with a playoff game. You can't really do that for just the 6th seed, right? And I think it was very necessary for Mariota to come in this game, and thank goodness they made that call. They made the right one, because Mariota came in firing on all cylinders. I don't know if it's injury related or what have you, but all I know is that Mariota came in and they won the football game, and they did what they needed to do. Would they have won if JD kept playing? Probably, most likely. But you're very much happy with the reality of we won, and Jaden wasn't put out there in harm's way with running the football as much as he was probably in that game, and they knew that he was going to be probably out in that field a lot running around. What about you, Paul?
Hey, some people can win with their backup quarterbacks, and some people can't.
It's true.
Shots fired. I love it. Yeah, I think it comes down to it. Just really, they were looking at the first half like, okay, this guy's getting beat by this guy. This guy's getting beat by this guy. Dieter, I'm sure there's a reason why he's the backup, and there's a reason why they got rid of Tyler Larson, but he was just simply not good today. Him versus Michael Parsons, obviously, that's a mismatch all day in and day out. So, yeah, I just think they looked at it like, okay, he's taking unnecessary shots. Let's not mortgage, like you said, let's not mortgage our next week playoff game and possibly our future just for a possible seeding type of situation. Like, it is what it is. Like I said before, all the teams are going to face going forward, they're going to be teams with good quarterbacks, good running games, good wide receivers, good defenses. It is what it is. It's a step up in competition. That's why it's only a select 7 teams that get into the tournament at this point. So it is what it is. And I think they looked at it like, and it comes back to what Jeff said also as well. We've seen what Marcus Mariota looks like when we have to insert him into this game. And it comes down to trust. We trust Marcus. And Zach Ertz talked about this as well, how he wanted to go to a team where coaches believed in him and believe that he can still do what he can do at a semi-high level. Guys like Cliff Kingsbury, Dan Quinn pumped that positivity into him, like, I believe in you. And so I think they believe that, look, like you said, can we win it with Jaden Daniels? Yes, probably. He's going to get to go out there. He's going to go out there and probably be Superman to do it. And we don't really need that going forward. We need to save him for the playoffs. We believe that we trust Marcus can go out there and run this offense. We've seen him execute the offense at a high level. We'll let him go out there and win the game, and hopefully our defense can make a play or two to help us out. Hopefully, I mean, eventually they did at some point. Both sides did that, so I think that's what it came down to.
Yeah, and credit to Brandon Coleman and Frankie Luvu for coming back in this game. But the guy you talked
Definitely.
about, Zach Ertz, had 5 receptions for 44 yards, 1 touchdown on 5 targets. He himself proved again to be critical. As much as everyone was talking crap about him, wanting to pull him for Ben Sinnott, and we have John Bates and company, Zach Ertz has done exactly what he needed to do. He did his job, and that's all he has.
No yak. Zach has quietly become our, literally, statistically and with your eyeballs, second best receiver on this team.
Absolutely. So. Boys, it has been a pleasure. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Jeff, before we get out of here, I'd like to plug your podcast just one more time, just in case anybody is still watching this and they want to follow your show, brother.
For sure. Yeah, go on YouTube and give us a subscribe at it's NFC East Beef. It should be under my name as well, but I'll leave that for another day. But yeah, just search NFC East Beef on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm still working with the Commanders for a couple pieces hanging up at the stadium. I know the season's over, but hey, you can go see some artwork up at the stadium. So follow me on Instagram as well at hefe.miles. Yeah, and I just want to appreciate y'all for having me. I would love to interview y'all on my podcast soon. But you know what? Let's enjoy it. Just take the time. We're 12-5, boys.
12 wins. 12 wins. God damn.
I just want to be happy for this week and just, take that in. So I
tripled up from last year.
And the crazy thing is they're 12-5, and it's not like in previous playoff years or NFC East years where you could say the rest of the NFC was crap. Like, they have really performed well as the NFC
or they had
altogether.
to go on a winning streak to get in. They had to backdoor themselves in on a winning streak.
Right. This was completely different where they really played well all year. And the title of this episode is The Comeback Kids. And that's what they have done and solidified themselves. Yeah. I could say that's their identity at this point. Boys, it's been a pleasure. If you've made it this far, you're a freaking champion. If you have, we'll see you guys again on Wednesday for a special playoff format.
Playoff
pod, baby. So we'll catch you guys then. Hopefully Reed will be there as well. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
I'm Jeff.
And we'll see you guys then. Have a great Victory Monday, everybody. We're 12-5. We're in the playoffs. This is awesome. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.